newspaper we produce with UNA called Warpath. This is the second largest Indian paper in the country today. It's got an application blank on the back. This thing, investigation of Rosebud Hospital. Through UNA, we've investigated seven Bureau of Indian Affairs boarding schools in different parts of the country, run by the Bureau of Indian Affairs. We've investigated them. We've testified in 3 Senate hearings in Washington, D.C. We've exposed them through radio, television, and newspaper, through our own paper. And this one has BIA schools, Bureau of Indian Affairs schools, are an actual disgrace. And there's about 2 or 3 schools, the conditions we found in here. Chamala. We went to Chamala and investigated Chamala Indian School up here in Oregon about a month and a half ago. And we investigated a hospital here, Rosebud Hospital. I'm being sued over that right now. And one of the doctors is suing me, our UNA. We have posters we put out. Possibly you've seen some of these posters of some of our great leaders. I sent to Washington, D.C. to the Smithsonian Institute, and I got these pictures, and I had them blown up into big posters. And I think you've got some here. I'm not sure the other Indian Center. But these are produced by UNA. We've got Chief Joseph in the Fighting Nez Perce. And each issue of this paper, we tried to depict one of our great Indians of the past with a story about him. And there's an old-time riddle here, an Indian who made All-American in Oklahoma, beautiful young Indian girl. There's a good spoof here in the Bureau of Indian Affairs. It says, qualifications to work for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Fantastic article. It says, health requirements. Applicants must be warm and breathing. Deaf and dumb are accepted. Eyesight really doesn't matter. Poor eyesight actually makes it easier to overlook Indian complaints. Ambidextrous people prefer it. This way they can steal with both hands. Body requirements, chunky or fat, either is okay, but prefer people with larger ears, must be able to sit long hours and do nothing without complaining. Educational requirements, little or no education required, but prefer people who can read and write. IQ requirements, mental midgets are preferred. BIA average is only 28. And then it goes on down to say age limit, 18 to 105. Whites who have good jobs will be able to pass them off to their sons after retirement, naturally. And then it goes on down to give a few other requirements. It's a spoof on the Bureau of Indian Affairs, but it's true. There's a good man in here, was here yesterday, Westerman. There's another Indian who wrote a book, Bob Burnett. Fantastic book he wrote. A lot of prayers and jokes and what have you. And you find there's an article in here by George Mitchell. George Mitchell is I don't know, some of you know George, some of you may not. But George is one of the few great Indian men we've got today. And George was one of the founders of AIM in Minneapolis. He's out here now. He's got a lot to offer people. Here's a picture of the bunny of the month, Wilma Victor. Those of you who don't know Wilma Victor, we went over and investigated UNA, an Indian school called Intermountain Indian School in Utah. And for those of you who don't know about Intermountain Indian School, 85% of the employees are Mormon. So naturally they forced the Mormon faith on Indians. And Mormons are promoted first, white Mormons, and then Indian Mormons, and then last Indians. We found out that most of the Indians there have GS ratings of GS5 or below, and white people have GS ratings of GS5 or above. And white people get all the better housing because they take the higher GS ratings first. So Indians wind up with low housing, low money, and never get promoted. We found Indians with BA degrees who had 30 years in service, still GS5s. You know why this happens? Because they don't bitch and they don't cry. And the goddamn Bureau of Indian Affairs doesn't give a shit about Indians. If they did, they'd try to promote these Indians. They sweep it under the rug. The Bureau of Indian Affairs, I cannot say enough bad things about it. They always call it, it's organized confusion. They've been around for goddamn since 1830s. Since the 1830s. And I don't know, it's hard to find anything constructive they've done besides exploit Indians. And that's why I attack them all the time. We investigate their damn schools and their hospitals and other things and print them. This woman was a superintendent of the Indian school at Intermountain Indian School. They have 1,600 kids there, all Navajo. That's the largest Indian school in the world. And they were taking kids there when they found them drinking and handcuffing them and shaving their heads for drinking. That was punishment. How'd you like to have them take you down, handcuff you, and shave your head? Can you imagine the emotional shock of having your hair shaved? One young Indian kid, that they shaved his hair, he had long hair. Takes about, my hair's been growing for a little over a year. It takes a couple of years to get your hair down where you can braid it or long enough. And can you imagine what the emotional shock of having it cut, just shaved? He quit school and he cried all night. Well, he cried all night after they shaved it. He didn't go to school the next day. And he told somebody, he said, I have no more pride. My pride was in my hair. And he said, I have no more pride. I'm leaving. He spoke with broken English. He was a full-blood Navajo. He didn't speak English that well. It was a very heart-rending story. He quit. He isn't a dropout. He's a push-out. What do they give a shit how long his hair is? He's an Indian. He's going to school. There's an all-Indian school. Most of the employees are white. At that particular school, they shoot Indians with Thorazine. I don't know how many are familiar with a drug called Thorazine. Very powerful, tranquilizing drug. Thorazine is what you call a suppressant. Alcohol is a suppressant. You drink, get drunk, and they shoot you with Thorazine, they can kill you. The makers of Thorazine state it's not to be used with alcohol. And at that place, they take youth, who they have no recreation for them, nothing. And what recreation they do have, football, baseball, track, and swimming, and these other forms of recreation, they charge them. And most of these kids come from homes where they're making their family, average family probably makes about $800 a year, Navajos. And they charge them. The kids who are orphans, wards at state, who don't have money, they can't go to the recreation, forms of recreation they have there. So some of them pool their money and they escape through the harsh facts of booze. And they escape the harsh facts of reality of the booze. And then when they come back, they shoot them with Thorazine. Strap them down. They have drunk tanks. They put the drunkest of the lot in these drunk tanks and shoot them with Thorazine. It knocks you out for 4 and 5 hours. We talked to one young girl who was shot with this drug, and she has dizzy spells since they shot her. She loses her equilibrium. Young girl. They may have made a goddamn vegetable out of this young girl by shooting her with Thorazine. Her only crime is she was an Indian, put in that damn school. She has no money for recreation, so they drink every now and then. And to avoid the discrimination and the harsh rules, and then they shoot them with Thorazine, and the parents don't know they're doing this to them. They sign a blanket release for these kids to go to these schools. They do anything to them they want to. We investigated this school and found out that Wilma Victor was the head of it, an Indian. Was allowing them to shoot these kids with Thorazine and goddamn, first they were cutting their hair and shaving their head and handcuffing them. And then they found a more humane way to deal with them, to shoot them with Thorazine. This woman, Wilma Victor, was a superintendent. So I printed a beautiful picture over here. We had a Navajo, one of her former students there, did this. I'm going to print the backside in the next issue showing her their ass. You know what she is now? After we exposed her at that school, she was ship-canned and deep sixth, stuck away where she couldn't harm anybody else. So Roger Morton, who was in the service with her in the Second World War, when he became the Secretary of Interior, he drug her out of nowhere and made her the Under-Secretary of Interior in charge of Indian affairs. Highest position in the land Indian people hold today. A big sellout like that. So I sent over 300 copies to Washington alone, D.C. They're floating all over hell. They live all over. Big laughing stuff. We picked a scraggly body on her, and the face looks exactly like her. She's what we call an apple in the Indian world. She's red on the outside and white on the inside. They used to call them Uncle Tomahawks. In the old days, they called them hang-around-the-fort Indians. Rather than out there goddamn fighting to keep Indians free, they hang around the fort begging for food and what have you. But this is something that I don't know, and it's bad in a sense to criticize her, but she's done so goddamn much bad for Indians. Here's a man that a lot of you probably don't know anything about. This is a man called Mangus, Colorado. Mangus, Colorado weighed 250 pounds and stood 6 feet 6, born in 1795. He set back civilization in the Southwest about 50 years. He staked white people out on those goddamn ant hills and burned their ass with wagon wheels and what have you when he called them in his territory, and Mexicans, because they were invading Apache land. He was an Apache. He was bigger than half the goddamn horses. The average Apache right now is about 5'6", probably, or 7. Not that high, I doubt. And can you imagine, born in 1795? He didn't run out and invade the goddamn cities and attack white people. He attacked them when they came into his area. Mangus, Colorado. Goddamn, when I read about him, I swelled with pride. I thought I was 9 foot tall. I'm a Sioux. But when I read about Indians who are doing something, it doesn't make a goddamn what kind, like him or Chief Joseph or somebody. It makes me proud I'm an Indian. And so we print stories like this in one tab to give pride to Indian youth and so forth. There's all kinds of stories in news.